First of all, if it was too dangerous in March to play college basketball, baseball, track, soccer, whatever was happening in the spring, why is it any safer now? There are more cases, a hundredfold now than there were in March. We are no closer to a vaccine than we were in March. We have no treatments. We have no plan. College football is a mess. They have no president. They have no centralized voice that can make these decisions. So, you got the Big Ten, the Pac-12 doing what they want to do. The SEC trying to be the bully because they got all the big schools and saying, well, we're going to play football and flexing and that. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, okay, if the SEC plays football and Georgia wins the national championship, okay, well, who did Georgia beat to win the national championship? Like, if you're just talking about it just from a competitive standpoint, nobody wants to win an asterisk championship because you couldn't wait a few months. And that's just being at the most baseline competitive part of it. The second part of it is, the lie that's being told that they're going to try to play fall football. Like, that's not going to work. We know that's not going to work. That just doesn't make any sense because, like, you can't play football. You can't play a full football season, no break, turn around, start workouts, play another season. That's not how football works. Your body needs to recover. So, I mean, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see spring football. I mean, I would rather just wait till next fall. And there's no guarantee that things will be better in the spring. So, I mean, what's Clemson without Trevor Lawrence right now? Like, we won't see Trevor Lawrence in the spring if we play college football in the spring. We won't see Justin Fields at Ohio State. We won't see Jamie Newman at Georgia. We won't see it's going to be a lot of guys that just leave and go to the pros, and I don't blame them. So I don't know. I really am at a point where I really think people are overreacting to the cancellation because they should have been thinking that this was a reality this whole time because nobody wanted to take this seriously, and here we are. So this is what it is.
I think when you look at New Zealand, where they're at with 0 cases in the last month or something like that. When you look at London, where they're opening up, gatherings and places where you can go to gather and social gatherings. When you look at all these other places, it gets pretty political with the next thing that someone would usually say. So I'm gonna kind of shy away from that, but I'll just leave it at that. No. Even Japan with the little K-pop baseball. They opened it up, K-pop baseball, a couple months ago. No fans in the stands. We were watching that because we didn't have nothing else to watch. Now the K-pop baseball has fans in the stands, and they had it for about the last month and a half. When you look at all these other places that strictly enforce the procedures, yes, coronavirus didn't go anywhere. Yes, it still exists. The thing is, when you isolate and you follow the necessary precautions that these folks told you to take in March, it works. Magically, it works. I don't know why it is a debate. I'm trying not to get too political, but it feels like it's kind of hard to avoid. I don't know why it's a debate to take some of these necessary precautions and think that the virus is made up thing, imaginary thing, just because you got it or you were told that you were positive and nothing happened to you. You felt nothing because you had the flu before and you felt that, but you had this and you didn't feel anything. I don't know why it is a political thing. I don't know why it's become that. Because if you look in your own country, right, we're about to talk about the bubble, right? The NBA has a bubble. WNBA has a bubble. I think NHL has their thing that they got going on. They have 2 bubbles, one for the East, one for the West. None of them jokers tested positive. And you know what they did? They're like, all right, you get tested.
MLS too.
MLS too. None of them jokers tested positive. You're talking about hundreds of athletes. Probably when you talk about across all 4, MLS, NHL, NBA, WNBA. When you talk about all four leagues, you're talking about probably combined thousands of people with the trainers, coaches, coaching staff, blah, 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 and the athletes. In all four leagues, you're talking about thousands of people who have been placed in these things. They got tested before they came. They had to be negative before they came down into these little secluded areas where they had to wear a mask everywhere. They couldn't leave these premises. They had to stay within these things. They had to take the little precautions. Everybody wear the mask. If you don't wear the mask, someone call the hotline. Dwight Howard ain't wearing a mask. Michael Porter Jr. He don't believe in masks, so he ain't wearing it at the buffet line. You in trouble. They made it so strict, right? You can't do this, you can't do that, but you can do this, you can do that. Everything that they told us to do in March, multiple sanitation stations everywhere. Somehow there's no positive test. These jokers been here since the beginning of July. That's when MLS got there. The beginning of July, they got down to Florida. So when you see this in your own country, that this works if you take the necessary precautions, why is it debate to take the necessary precautions? And then you think, hold on, what are we talking about? So necessary precautions, that's the first thing. Second thing, jokers in March was joking about, man, if you tell the South that you can save college football this fall by wearing a mask and staying inside the house, they would do it, LOL. And everybody laughed. Now look at you. Now you upset. Now you about to throw a hussy fit on Facebook. You about to go on Facebook Live with all your little nephews and nieces, throw a little temper tantrum. You're a grown man. You 53 years old. And you about to go in your mama's basement, go on Facebook Live, throw a temper tantrum about how the country got too soft for you, and you ain't going to see your college football because you ain't get to see them throw the little pigskin around the field. Joker, you would have got to see it if you took this thing serious in March and exactly what Jeremy said, in March and April and May and June and July. You didn't take it serious all 5 of the months. You stayed in the house for 1 week in March and said, all right, this all right. That's enough. We need to go back to work. We need haircuts. I need to eat inside a restaurant. I need a steak. Now you ain't got no football. And now we in this thing a whole nother 3, 4, however long months because of y'all. So I want y'all to sit down and really, really sit with y'all thoughts. Yes, this can be a little bit on the higher ups at college football and the NFL, even though we're not talking about the NFL and MLB. Y'all had months to figure it out. NBA, WNBA, MLS, NHL, they figured it out. We're going to do the bubble cities. NFL football is too many people to do a bubble. So you got to think of something else. Maybe I do a bubble town or something. I don't know. Maybe I do something else where I got 3 sites, 4 sites, and then we bubble all them jokers and they don't touch nobody except for in the bubble. I don't know. But you could have figured something out in these past, March to August. That's 5 months. So, yes, that's on the leadership, but it's also on, you know the rest. So I don't want to see y'all throwing no hissy fits now. I don't want to save the Facebook thought piece. Save your little comments on the Twitter about how soft the country's gotten. Because these jokers are still dying. And when it hit you personally, when your auntie, when your uncle, when they die of this, then you're going to be, no, I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Because we done told you about this for 5 months. That's it.
Oh, what they called us, media people, for all these months. We were trying to explain this. It's really frustrating to be in this time just because we say this stuff, and because people don't agree with it or want to hear it, you know, now we got to get called all kind of names and blah blah blah. And now, now that football is actually not going to be here, now what? So, like, do we get an apology because we weren't making this up? Like, this is what ended up happening. So I don't know. I mean, I do feel like that the SEC will try to play. I mean, because I don't know how you do a spring football season. I don't know how that works, but I don't think it's as hard as it's made out to be, especially for the NFL. College football was never going to work because once you bring students into play, and you bring kids into that environment, college. I grew up in a college town, so I know what goes on here. You got bars like it's a what they call that a tinder box. That's literally what happened. Will happen as soon as these students get here and start going to parties, going out to the bars, riding buses, going to class. It's going to spread. Um, so I say since there's no football, I say every class online. Get these people their money back. Don't wait till they've paid their tuition to tell them, hey, actually you can't come to class.
And the
That's
kids
that's
already
that,
done moved in, Jeremy. The kids already done moved in.
and that's a big scam because they knew what they were going to do. And I think that's my biggest problem with all of this is that I believe a lot of these conferences knew what they were going to do back in June. Why drag these kids across the country into your facilities, quarantine them for months, have them tested multiple times a week, waste all of this money, waste all of these tests just to get to close to the season and say, and just give up? Like that's ridiculous to me. Like there's like you, if anything, you've gotten to a point now where you could play because it's there's like I haven't heard of many tests like recently that have been positive, but that's not the point. The point is this was never going to work. We knew that, and he tried it anyway. What changed over the last few weeks? Like what changed? And as far as NFL goes, I mean, the NFL is simple as just moving people to their training camp facilities. Like the Falcons have Flowery Branch. Just move them in there, and they don't go anywhere until they play games. I know that sucks, and I know they want to see their families, but that's the only way this is going to work. It's simple. Either you want to sacrifice to play the sport, or you don't, because
They got to
that's what's
see
got to
that.
happen.
Hey, Jeremy, they got to see their families the past 5 months. You got all the family time you needed, then you was locked in the house, or you should have
Yeah,
been.
yeah. I mean if that's I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't even play. Like if I'm in the NFL right now, I want to be around my family. So that's a personal decision though. But if you really want sports to work, there are ways to do it, but you're gonna have to do things that you don't want to do. So that
That's interesting that you bring that up, and that was also a very good point you mentioned about both you and Shad mentioned about how how everybody, because in all honesty and truth, I called this back in March. I may not have said it on a show, but I called this one back in March, like when this pandemic really started flaring up. One of the first things that I was thinking to myself, especially being parked in the Southeast, one of the first things that I thought to myself was, was that it was one of those issues where when you saw a lot of the southern states were really the last to issue shelter in place, stay at home and quarantine orders. And one of the first things that also kind of struck me was the fact that a lot of these same states, the Floridas, the Georgias, the South Carolinas, the Alabamas, the Texases, the Mississippis, the Tennessees, a lot of these same states were the first to reopen. And when they reopened, it was something where pretty much it was practically business as usual, as if the coronavirus pretty much just decided to just take its ball and go home. And as we know, it did not exactly do that. But one of the things that I was thinking about really this whole time was, exactly what you had said. What if this thing ends up being so out of control to the point where all of a sudden we're in late July or early August or mid-August, and now all of a sudden we could very well be in a situation where there is no college football. And also, it's kind of ironic because where was it? Which states have we been talking about as of late over the past month or so? Have we been talking about a spike in coronavirus cases? Florida, football state. Georgia, football state. Texas, football state deluxe. Arizona, football state. So it's kind of ironic when you look at it from a college football, college sports fan perspective and thinking like, oh, wow, like we've been seeing this spike in cases, not only in Western and Southeastern states, but also states that are pretty big on football. So it's sort of one of those things. I look at it from a perspective of, oh, wow, now, like you said, these same states are now in their feelings, and people are, in these states are in their feelings talking about, oh, wow, like we may not necessarily have football. I mean, the governor of Mississippi basically said that was the reason why he instituted a mask ordinance. So it's so ironic. The fact, right where you are, Shad, it's so ironic that this, and I see it, on places as well, like, wear a mask, social distance, because we want to say football. People didn't listen, and now all of a sudden we're talking about a situation where there's not going to be any football. So that's something that, I think is just really, really, really ironic when I think about just how much this has played out, and it's just going to be something where, like I said, as I was saying earlier, I think that it's really prolonging the inevitable. Like we've seen, it's not just going to be the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the MAC and the Mountain West. It's not just going to be those conferences. I feel like the rest of these conferences are basically, they're pretty much prolonging the inevitable, because the inevitable part of this is, this isn't going away anytime soon. And it's also ironic that you mentioned the bit about the bubbles. You can't put college football in a bubble. Too many teams, too many players. So that's just never going to be something that was really going to work. But it's kind of ironic. It's sort of ironic that you mentioned those sports that have the bubbles. Those sports with the bubbles have relatively small rosters. We've seen and this actually is also something that kind of concerns me even in the future about the NFL, because we've seen the issues that Major League Baseball has had with the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals. We've seen the issues that baseball has had in trying to get its sport going. And yet there have been, both of those teams have had positive tests, coronavirus outbreaks. How is this going to work? I'm concerned. How is this going to work for the NFL if they're talking about still going forward with a season? And not only that, like you have some teams even as well, like the Atlanta Falcons, that are saying that we could not only have a season, but we could also have fans in the stands at limited capacity. So when I think about the issues that college football is having, it just makes me think, how is the NFL going to pull this off? Because baseball is barely pulling it off. I don't even know if they're even going to complete the season. I'm just wondering how the NFL is going to be able to pull this off, because, you just have a sport with 32 teams and so many players and so much contact. I mean, you want to talk about a sport that's not exactly conducive to social distancing. The NFL is it. So it just got me thinking, like, how is the NFL going to pull it off when you already have college football conferences basically saying, oh, we're not going to pull this off? But you know what? It's interesting that Trevor Lawrence still wants to play, because if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be the first overall pick. Like, I got teams this year that if there is a season that are going to end up tanking just to draft me first overall. So if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm like, deuces. I already won you a national championship, Clemson. Like, I'm out of here. I'm about to make me some money.
Who told Trevor Lawrence he was the LeBron James of college football? You ain't got pulled like that, son. Hey, he's pretty close, but, he's not LeBron. You go ahead, Jeremy.
I'll say this, Akim. I think you were kind of knocking up an interesting tree when because, y'all know me. I've always loved the sport of football, but I think this whole thing has exposed a little bit of the culture of football in general, not necessarily from just the fans' perspective. People are literally losing their minds because young 19, 20, 21-year-olds won't go out in the middle of a pandemic without a plan and run into each other. I don't get why that's such a big deal. And I love football, and I think it brings us together, and I think it does need to be played at some point. That being said, it's like, these are people. Like, so that's me. That's me seeing that some of these fan bases don't even see these kids, these young men, these young athletes as people. Like they have feelings, and this virus may affect them in different ways. Like everybody may not be okay. I don't know if you've seen Alabama's offensive line, but some of those guys are 350, 320 pounds. Those are the people who have issues with this virus. So I don't know. That's one of I cringe when I think about that. The second part is if we're not even thinking about money, I don't even think we're having this discussion right now in August. I think this discussion is had in March, and it's over. And I think the season's over. And I think the decisions have all been made, and there's a plan in place because we're not talking about millions of dollars. That's the other thing. You're wanting somebody to do this because of money, and they're not even being paid to do this. They don't make any money off of this. I don't want to hear about scholarships. I don't care about that. How are you going to get a scholarship, and how is that scholarship going to be honored if you can't even go sit in class? But you expect them to be there on campus in the middle of a pandemic when it's not safe to go to class, and you want them to be on a practice field while everybody else is working. So that just doesn't make sense to me. And then the other thing is the kind of problem we had with concussions. Um, I just I fear for football once it does get started or whenever it starts during this, because concussions would happen so often. You'd hear people get hit, ding, you'll be all right. Go back in the game. You just got your bell rung. Go back out there. Okay, say Trevor Lawrence catches coronavirus and he tests positive the evening of the final of the college football playoff. How inclined is a program to report that? We've seen this happen where concussions were not reported by key players so that they can go on and continue to play. We've seen Bounty Gate. We've seen all these things, and that's the culture of the sport. So it's a dangerous thing to allow to walk into that culture, because you're going to look up and, hey, when those juices start getting going, and things are starting to be on the line, football ain't the most honest sport when it comes to health. So I worry for these kids' health because of that aspect of it as well. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think we definitely play a part in that as the media, as as coaches. You know what I'm saying? Like, we grew up just thinking that, not even in just football, in all sports, but specifically football, because that's like the tough man sport. So it's like, like we glorify, like, Willis Reed is like a hero to us because he was limping and came back out limping and scored whatever he scored in that finals game, you know what I'm saying, for the Knicks. And it's like I can't think of any other, but there's a few other guys who were limping on the field in football. And, they finished the game and won the game. And it's like, these guys are heroes. They're tough. Like, they're, and coach today at one of the programs or whatever over the Zoom interview, he was saying, we're not even thinking about that. We're not thinking about all that outside noise. We're being positive. And I'm like, it's not just outside noise. It's not like people are saying, like, who's going to be the quarterback this season. This is like, people are dying. So it was like, to hear. Yeah. And then he went on to say, that's the difference between a good player and a great player. It's like, he comes in to work every day. He doesn't listen to the outside noise, and he comes to work focused, and we're focused on the first game of the season. And it's like, I don't think we should necessarily praise that behavior. Like, because then, kids who don't believe like that, naturally, they are worried about their family's health and everything like that. They're on campus, their family's all the way a couple states over. And, granny, auntie, or I'll say auntie, that's a more realistic example. Auntie has an essential job, but she also has a pre-existing condition. But what's she going to do? She's got to pay the bills. So she's going to work every day with a pre-existing condition. And he's worried about auntie, but he has to focus on practice. So you're telling me that, if a player hears that from a coach, dang, I got to lock in on this practice. I can't think anything about that, because if I do, I'm weak-minded. Like, what are you teaching your kids here? What are we training with our kids? So I definitely agree with that, Jeremy.
And something else, it's interesting that something else you brought up too that I also wanted to address is this narrative that's pushed out there that media people that are concerned about a college football season are quote unquote rooting against having college football. Like I've seen that all over the place. And it's every single time I listen to somebody on the radio say, oh, you're rooting against college football. You don't want college football to happen. Or I see somebody on Twitter, talk about like, they're saying, oh, you don't want college football to happen. I want to throw my phone across the room because this has nothing to do with like, how hard is it for some people to get through their heads? We're not rooting against college football. We're not anti-college football. So many people around the country, especially you, Jeremy, you're a diehard Dogs fan. So like, we're not rooting against college football. We're not anti-sports. We're not anti-college football. We're pro-human lives. That's what this is all about. It has nothing to do with being anti-college football. Like, it's so amazing. People are saying, oh, we're anti-college football, but they're saying it to the very same people whose jobs are literally all about covering college football. Like, shout out Cameron Teague up at the Courier-Journal. Like, he's the Louisville football beat reporter. Like, do you think that he wants to go through, or anybody who covers the sport, do you think that anybody who covers the sport, who watches the sport for a living and everything like that, you think they want to go through a whole fall with no college football games?
Hey, King, coming off a spring and a summer of furlough, being on furlough.
Exactly. So that's something that I really wanted to get off my chest, because like I was saying earlier, any single time I see somebody have the nerve to opine that, oh, there's some other agenda going on, like here, like the media doesn't want college football to happen. And I just want to give him the Chad Ochocinco, like, chow, please. Because I just think that, and really and truly, it does go back to that whole culture that you, Jay, and you, Shad, was talking about earlier. Like, and then another excuse that people want to go ahead and say is, oh, these are for the most part young kids. These are 18-year-old kids, 19-year-olds, 20, 21, 22, 23. And they want to say, oh, it's not, it hasn't been the young kids that have been dying of the coronavirus. Maybe they've got it, but they haven't necessarily been dying. It's mostly, 60 plus senior citizens that have been dying. First of all, it's a really telling quote when people say that, because it kind of shows them exactly what they think of senior citizens, even their own mothers and fathers. And then on top of everything else, you also had to take this into consideration. There have been young people that have been dying of, coronavirus, and have, and not even just dying, but also health complications. I mean, I'm pretty sure we all saw that viral photo out of Paulding County, Georgia, at that school. And what was the result? 9 positive tests. So I just had to get that off of my chest, just for the sake of getting that off my chest, because that right there, that when I see people have the nerve to say that's something that absolutely makes my blood boil, because we want the Saturdays down south. We want those experiences. We want to see, fans rallying outside of, they stadiums, for the opening kickoff of the college football season, and, just getting that whole experience, because that's an important part of just the experience of being a college kid, especially at a school down south, or especially at a school that is very centric around college football. So when people say that, it's just, oh man, like I said, I just want to throw my phone across my room when I see that mess.
Georgia fan, this was our year. So, I didn't want to see this, but like you said, Akeem, it's a game. It's a game. It's a game. Like, I mean, games are played by people who have the opportunity to play games. Like, we're crying about a game, and there are some places on this planet that do not have fields that are safe enough to play games on. Get over it. Let's figure out how to survive this virus and make and go back to normal. Like that's how you get football back. Simple.
And another thing I want to say before we move on, I also want to say you talk about senior citizens. Nick Saban is 68 years old. I don't know if you guys recognize those things when people talk about someone's like history with the game. They're like, spend over 40 years in the game. Like that's because they're like darn near 70 years old. So Nick Saban is a senior citizen. He's 68 years old. I don't know. Some people might be like, I don't consider that. I consider if you're above 65, like you're kind of in that category, Nick. So yeah. But yeah, anyways, going back to the bubble now. So the second thing I want to talk about is the actual bubble stuff. We got a little race in the Western Conference. We got 4 teams separated by about half a game in the West. You got the Portland Trail Blazers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Phoenix Suns. No one expected the Suns to be in this conversation. They are 7-0. It's 8 games to qualify for the playoffs, and they won 7 of them, the first 7. That boy Book looking different. That boy Dame looking different. That boy TJ Warren looking different, but he slowed down a little bit. 12 points against who was that? Miami. So what are you guys thinking about the bubble and the AFC race in the West?
Really disappointed to see Booker playing so well. I was hoping that he would get traded to Atlanta, but that ain't going to happen now. Like they would have to give their entire roster for him now. And that's just not going to happen. So
you would have to trade Trey at this point to get Booker.
Yeah, they would have to say Trey, John Collins, Herter, first round pick. At that point, it's like, why even do it? The coach.
They would have to trade the State Farm Arena, the Poland place, the Poland dates.
They'd have to get rid of a lot of stuff. Maybe a couple of pieces of that State Farm Arena hardwood.
Raymond was talking about getting Booker out of there. Now I think he might have locked himself into Phoenix, if anything, the way he's playing. But no, I think I think that's going to be interesting to see who comes out of that. I really feel I really wish we could take one of those teams and put them in the East and let them have one of their spots because, oh Jesus, Brooklyn and Orlando. Brooklyn's played well in the bubble, but like watching them in the playoffs is going to be just brutal. I don't want to see that. So
well, the East is like they have some teams, but the problem with the East, they so top heavy. So like you said, like and they got Boston or something like that. Who is the number 1 seed in the East? I don't even. Milwaukee, of course. They won 80 games this year. But I guess Boston will be the 2nd seed. Yeah, but
Toronto is the 2nd seed,
so
and then
Toronto's
Boston's
still
3.
up there. Yeah, I got Toronto coming out. I've been had that, but especially even more now with Philly falling into pieces. But man, yeah, like Toronto versus Brooklyn. I don't know, man. That's
a mismatch.
Yeah, that's. But salute to Brooklyn. Definitely, they're one of the great stories of the bubble. Going down there with the G League team, no one wanted to go down there and play for them. So, for good reason, half of them jokers got COVID in New York. So, salute to them. Salute to them. Jock Vaughn needs a job, man. Give him a full-time job, man.
I don't know why they fired Kenny Atkinson, to be honest, but
I think that was a mutual decision. Like they had a disagreement or something like that. I saw some rumors that it was like KD, but I don't want to throw out no false rumors. But it was like KD didn't really like the direction he was going. But Kenny Atkinson's a great coach.
It's messed up that superstars just show up in the city and think they can just change the culture because that culture was heading in the right direction for them. That's why when I heard they were going to Brooklyn, I cringed because I know how superstars are. And it's like, they could have potentially had that Toronto model where, they build a culture and then a star comes in and fits right in like Kawhi did. I mean, everybody can't be Kawhi willing to fit into that culture, but, I think that's more important, especially in pro sports, than just throwing together a bunch of talented guys. that's played out. So
College too,
I
especially. You get a culture, you get a good coach, you're good regardless. You know what I'm saying? Like Georgia State, when Ron Hunter was there, they were good regardless who came in and out. When RJ leaves, them jokers still winning the Sun Belt. You know, you look at Alabama, Kentucky, them jokers been winning for feels like forever. You know what I'm saying? So culture is more important than star players. And I think we saw it like as trying to think of the last super team that really kind of fizzled out. I would just guess like the last team like LeBron was on, and then even Golden State. But I mean, Golden State has somewhat of a culture they've established through their super team, being that they drafted those guys and stuff like that. But yeah, that culture is something serious because Toronto, all right, we put it all on the table for Kawhi. We feel like Kawhi can push us over the hump better than DeMar DeRozan can. So they took that chance with Kawhi for 1 year. It paid off. Kawhi left. Okay, we still good, regardless of who's gonna be in here. DeRozan could be gone, Kawhi could be gone. We still gonna win the East, and that's saying something right there. That's something that's just crazy. That's very admirable. So yeah,
think
I'm
they
with you
have a
right
lot
there.
more
I agree
talent
with
than
that.
people give them credit for too.
Oh, for
I
sure, for sure.
I watched them play the other night. I'm like, I'm looking at some of these guys on their bench, and they like Boucher can play. Norman Powell can really play. Fred Van Fleet, like they fire these guys and develop them. Like a lot of these guys are second tier prospects coming out, or some of them are even the best players on their college teams.
Terrence
And they
Davis.
take, yeah, I mean they develop them. So I, I love that. That's what makes professional sports great because it's like there ain't one way to get to the top. There's different ways to do it, and you got to get creative to get there. And Toronto's done that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of the East. I doubt there was no chance on planet Earth that they would even be relevant. I thought they got their ring and they would go away. They're looking like the second coming of the San Antonio Spurs, like the West version of the San Antonio Spurs, because it's like, they won that first title with the Twin Towers, and then, off they went, So I could see that kind of brewing up there in Toronto. So that's cool to watch, to be honest. So
It really is cool to watch because, like you said, about how just those how just those teams are built, and in all honesty and truthfulness, it could even be something where those teams could have more staying power and more consistency as far as winning more so than teams that you just go ahead and just put together and just build a super team. Because look at what happened when the Boston Celtics built a super team with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. They got their ring and then they went back to the finals, but it wasn't long before all of a sudden, basically everybody left. They left. Paul Pierce retired. Rajon Rondo left, and then the Celtics all of a sudden became an afterthought. Even those Miami Heat teams with LeBron and Wade and Bosh, they won. They won a few championships, but they had so much like the not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six type of thing. And as it turned out, they only won 2 championships, and really and truly, you could even say something where they only should have won 1 if it wasn't for that miracle shot Ray Allen hit against San Antonio. And then even look at everything that was going on with Golden State. They compiled a bunch of players together and they won some championships, but look at how that whole thing pretty much fizzled out almost overnight. Whereas, and not even that, even look at the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. So, that's another example, but look at what happened with the San Antonio Spurs. That really is best case scenario. And if Toronto ends up coming out of the East, I do believe that could very well be best case scenario for Toronto because, with San Antonio, with Coach Pop, and when they had all them teams with, Robinson and Duncan and Manu and Tony Parker and them, they, it was really something where they didn't necessarily win championships every year, but they were consistent contenders year in and year out for 2 decades pretty much. So I think that really and truly, I think that Toronto's kind of, like you said, they're sort of taking that San Antonio model and they're using it really to the best of their advantage. So I think that when all this is said and done, Toronto is probably going to be around for a pretty good bit of time. Getting Kawhi and winning that championship, I really believe it really did change a culture in Toronto, because it made them think, okay, we've got this championship, but let's not stop here. Let's get some more.
And well, another thing I want to say, this is kind of a little off topic, but it's still NBA. LeBron James is not the MVP. Look, I really hope he doesn't win the MVP. And, you know, Ramona Shelburne, she made headlines when she went on, I believe it was Ramona Shelburne. She went on the Get Up or the Jump. The Jump. The Jump today. And she said that she voted for LeBron based off of narrative reasons. Yeah, they wanted to vote for LeBron because Kobe died and this is 17th year in the league. If you watch any of these bubble games, you will see LeBron ain't the reason why they win. LeBron gets his every game. LeBron's gonna get his 20, his 8, his 5 every game. You look at his numbers, he did that last year when they missed the playoffs. It's AD is the one that's hitting the big shots. AD is the one getting the big stops. AD is the one hitting the big free throws. AD is the most valuable player on the Lakers. They know that.
Play well, they lose.
Exactly. So
it ain't rocket science.
So why is LeBron gonna get the MVP? Why is he even like this close to getting it? Because I feel like he's super close to getting MVP, and it's just because people gonna say all the years he was the best player and he didn't get MVP. There's a bunch of reasons I can already see it in my mind. LeBron ain't no MVP this year.
Apparently Colin Cowherd syndrome is more widespread than what we thought, because you know how he thinks. Just give the MVP to LeBron every single year. But like you said, AD is the difference maker. He is, because when you think about it, in a lot of ways, without AD, this Laker team really is not all that much different from last year's Laker team. AD makes such a huge difference. He is the reason, right? He is the reason why they are in contention to more than likely win the championship this year. It's really because of AD. So I feel like I think that a lot of times they just give the MVP award, especially now if they do it this year. Like LeBron's got his in the past. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's something where at this point, like he gets a lot of consideration just because it's almost like a lifetime achievement award. The MVP award is not supposed to be a lifetime achievement award. It's based on what you did for one season. And if they're going to do it just because of it, then as far as I'm concerned, they might as well just give it to LeBron every single year until he retires. And that's just not the way it works.
I'm with you. I mean, I think he's still a top 5, top 6 type player, but like you guys said, like I thought the MVP was about the guy who had the most value to a team, and I can throw 4 or 5 guys out that are more valuable to their team than LeBron is. Like say Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, Luka, AD. Shoot, I'd even throw Trey in there. So yeah. I mean, Joel Embiid. Like, if these teams don't have that guy, they lose every game. Like, they're not even competitive. So, I don't know. I mean, it's almost feels like a lifetime achievement award, like you're saying. If it were
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul's another one. That's a good one. Jokic from Denver. Jamal Murray's had a great year. We got a lot of guys that if they don't play for their teams aren't good. So, we can say, hey, we should have given LeBron the MVP all those years, but why didn't we? Like seriously, why didn't we? Like he was the most. Like at one point he was the most valuable player, but like we're not going to go back and make up for that today because there's better players that deserve it more now than there were then. So.
And you can't throw Kobe in it Because everybody that watched basketball, that plays basketball right now, looked up to Kobe Bryant coming up.
Right.
So it is not just because there was a LeBron Kobe debate in 2007, 2008. And that done, what does that have to do with the MVP race in 2020? Everybody looked up to Kobe. Everybody was, oh, I looked up to Kobe. He's the reason why that's everybody. You got Emine. I listened to the new Emine album for 3 songs in a row. He talking about Kobe and how Kobe impacted. He a rapper. So what are we talking about right now, man?
I'm trying to figure that one out for
Practice.
trying to practice. I'm trying to figure that one out for myself. I mean, so I just think that, and then, like I said, I think another thing that I think a lot of people just simply have to take into consideration is this is still a very productive LeBron, and he's still, like you said, Jay, one of the top 5, top 10 players in the league right now. But I just think that, like you said, it's one of those lifetime achievement award things. And I imagine that there are probably going to be some that are, because of the way that they performed in the bubble, there are probably going to be some that are going to be thinking, oh, wow, like, maybe we've been sleeping on Dame Lillard all these years. Maybe we've been sleeping on, on Book all these times. But I think a big part of the reason as to why people was, really sleeping on Book is because he plays in Phoenix, and Phoenix has not exactly done that much winning. I mean, that's what got Draymond in trouble for when he said that he wishes that Book was on another team. Basically saying he wishes he was on Golden State. So he got fined for that because they said, oh, he tampered. But yeah, I just think that, I just think that really, it's something where a lot of times you give the MVP to like the best player that is on the winning team. But if that's the case, then, it's really one of those things where it kind of X's out a lot of players that may very well be valuable to their team. But, it's not Book's fault that, that consistently the Phoenix Suns, all of a sudden, like, they weren't consistent winners, playing in Arizona, but all of a sudden you gave them down to Orlando and it's like, oh, they can't lose. And, then you got Dame, who's, not only, dropping 60 plus points a game, 50 plus, 60 plus, but also getting into beefs and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think that really the way that we think about the MVP award, I think, is really so flawed, because in a way we've been conditioned to think that, oh, it should be just, 1, 2, 3 players every single year, when really and truly, like, there's talent up and down, there's, MVP talent up and down this league that I feel like that lots of people have just been sleeping on, probably because they simply have not been watching the games.
And how did Devontae Graham not get nominated in the 3 finalists for most improved? Who thought that Devontae Graham would be in the all-star conversation, averaging 20 points, knocking down 30-foot game winners on the road on a consistent basis?
Yeah, he didn't even do that in college. So anybody who tells you that they thought that is lying. I don't know, guys. I think it's like, I hate MVP awards. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I absolutely hate them. I hate them for baseball, football, track, whatever MVP. I hate the Heisman Trophy. I think it's stupid, because the Heisman Trophy, you can't win it unless you play offense. like that's we've proven that you can only win it if you play offense, because Ndamukong Suh was the best player in the country one year. He didn't win it. Manti Te'o was the best player in the country one year. He didn't win it. Honey Badger.
Yeah. I'm about to say, yeah.
Best player in the country, did not win the Heisman Trophy. Aaron Donald was the best player in the country, did not win the Heisman Trophy. He didn't even get invited. So MVP is the same way for me. It's like people get considered because they score a lot. Okay, well, what about the other end of the court? Because that's what Kawhi Leonard does every night. Kawhi Leonard gonna shut down the best player on the other team, and he gonna win a championship. That's what he does. But you never hear Kawhi in that conversation because A, he doesn't play all the games, and B, he's not going to put up 30 points a game. That's not what he does. So, I mean, what are we like? We just talking about the person who scores the most in baseball is the person who hits the most home runs, has the highest batting average. Okay, well, what about the guy who has a gold glove in his pocket, but he also hit 30 home runs?
Or the guy that, or the guy that could very well be a pitcher that's, that's say 21-4 with an ERA under 2.
Yeah. Last year, I'll give you a perfect example. Last year, I felt Jacob deGrom might have been the best player in the National League last year. He won Cy Young, but he had I think he was like 9-8, or he had barely had over a 500 record because his team couldn't score runs when he pitched. So he got punished for that. I thought he should have been an MVP discussion, but he wasn't. So I don't know. MVP has just always been overrated to me in every sport, in any sport you can think of, because it's all about offense, and not one single sport is just about offense. So yeah.
And NFL 100, just to close that part, to put anybody except for Patrick Mahomes number 1 is ridiculous. And y'all know I'm the biggest Lamar fan there is. So I mean, that's ridiculous. And Patrick Mahomes is having a moment right now. In 10 years, people are gonna look back at this year, 2020. I don't know if sports still gonna exist then, but if they do, we're gonna be looking at 2020 like Patrick Mahomes is having a moment. You know what I'm saying? So that's just also that. But I want to present y'all this question. Playing game, it comes down to this. They already played the first 2 games. Spurs and Grizzlies canceled out each other. Phoenix, Portland, 1 game. Book versus Lillard. Who's winning?
Oh man. This is tough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you really with that, you can't go wrong. I mean, you can't go wrong either way. But I mean, at this point, I would probably right now have to lean Phoenix and Book just because they undefeated. I'd probably have to lean in that direction right now because I don't know what has happened with Phoenix like ever since they got into the bubble, but I don't know. Like you could go either way. Like it'd probably be one of those things. It'd probably go OT, maybe 2 OTs. But
that Joker Book, hey King, that Joker Book hit the dribble, spin move on Kawhi. I think spin move on PG. Kawhi reaching over to help PG. That Joker fade away as the time he's by. Oh my goodness, man! When he did that against 2 of the best defenders in the league,
I know.
Oh my! And against the best team in the league, bro.
Right.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I got Portland. Portland's a grown-up team, man. I like the story with Phoenix is fun, but they still babies. Like Booker's what, 22, 23 maybe, 24. Aiton's 20 at the most. Like I'm not trusting that over a bunch of guys that have been in the Western Conference Finals last year. So, and I'll say this right now that if Portland gets in the playoffs, they're beating the Lakers in the first round. That's happening. And so whoever it was that came and said the Lakers, when I said the Lakers weren't a championship team, and they shouted me out, after a couple of bad games because of blah blah. It's not just a couple of bad games. The Lakers have a fatal flaw, is that they cannot shoot. I don't know how you win the Western Conference and you can't shoot, and you don't have a bench. Your third best player is Kyle Kuzma, who averages 12 points per game. That's not good enough. That's just not good enough.
Man, I'm watching Inside the NBA last night. Them jokers asking, is Kyle Kuzma the third part to make a big 3? I'm like, hold on now. But first of all, we just had to talk about the best player. So you got AD and LeBron, both of them jokers in the top 10 discussion for players in the league, in the world. Kyle Kuzma ain't top 10 in his class. You talking about 2017? I'm putting Lonzo over Kyle Kuzma. I'm putting John Collins, DeAndre Fox, Devin Mitchell. Who else we got in 2017? I think Lauri Markkanen was 2017. I'm putting him over Kyle Kuzma. I got 5 other more that I'm putting. He's not top 10 in his class. That ain't no big 3.
I think Kyle Kuzma's reputation and playing in LA has swollen what he really is. He's not. I'm glad he hit that 3 the other night. That was great, but he.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
Oh, I got 5 more. I got 5 more for y'all. I'm taking Bam Adebayo over Kyle Kuzma. I'm taking Jason Tatum over Kyle Kuzma. I need 3 more. I'm taking OG from Toronto over Kyle Kuzma. I need 2 more. All right, here we go. I'm looking. Someone talk while I'm looking for the other 2.
I feel like the Lakers, like I said, they got a fatal flaw. They can't really shoot, and LeBron's too old to try to. He can't single-handedly go out and triple-double his way through a finals now. Like, I don't see him doing that. And you don't have a point guard. Like, Rondo's he's not healthy. And Avery Bradley didn't come down there. So, I mean, if you think the Lakers are going to count on J.R. Smith late in games, I mean, Quinn Cook, yay. But I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. And if you match that up against the Clippers head to head, like the Clippers go 8-9 deep with players that can average double digits, and they all can handle the ball. So, like, I just don't see how they match up with the Clippers in the playoffs. Like,
I think
all the way down.
A lot of it's just Laker hype.
Say it again.
I think a lot of it is really Laker hype. I think it's one of those issues where automatically, like, whenever the Lakers are good, I just feel like automatically, like, there's just this thing out there where people think, oh, the Lakers are good again. They're gonna win the championship and everything. But hold up, come again. You said a few minutes ago, you felt like if Portland gets in the playoffs, that they will bounce the Lakers in the first round.
Oh yeah, the Portland is a matchup nightmare for the Lakers. Because Damian Lillard is capable of matching either LeBron or AD scoring. Okay, they're small enough to run around them. Like, who's going to guard Lillard, McCollum, and Gary Trent's turned into a real player? Who's going to be able to guard those guys all game? Okay. Say if the Lakers' size starts to overwhelm the Portland backcourt. Okay, now you got 3 7-footers also. Nurkic, Collins, and Hassan Whiteside. All 3 of those guys can play. Carmelo's been balling. Gary Trent's been playing great off the bench. Great defender, tough guy, hits big shots, can pass. He's doing great. He's doing a great job. Nobody's talking about it. Then you got a closer. Terry Stotts has been a good coach since he left Atlanta. I don't know what happened when he left Atlanta. People forget he coached Atlanta, but he was not good in Atlanta. But he's a top 3 or 4 coach in the Western Conference. So that's a team that I don't want to play. And if I'm the Lakers, that's the one team I don't want to see, because that's the one team they can't beat in the first round.
Monty Morris, number 9, and on a good day, Markelle Fultz. That's 10. He ain't top 10 in his class on the right day. I'm gonna be respectful. I'm not gonna put him over Jared. I'm not gonna put Jared Allen over him. I'm not gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna put Derek White, Josh Hart over him. But yeah, that's 10. Kyle Kuzma not top 10 in the 2017 draft class.
He may not be, but like I was saying just a little bit earlier, a lot of the Kyle Kuzma stuff that's out there, it's pure D Laker hype. Automatically, like, imagine, if Kyle Kuzma was doing what he was doing, say, in San Antonio, or if he was doing what he was doing, say, in, a town like, with a team like Memphis, or even in Denver, or even in some other place where it wouldn't be getting as much attention. Say if he was balling out in Atlanta or balling out in Charlotte. Like, it's different when you play in LA, and it's different when you play for the Lakers. Automatically, when you play for a team like the Lakers or you play for the Knicks, all of a sudden everything as we know, everything gets hyped up to the nth degree.
He will be.
I'm gonna put this in perspective. I'm gonna put this in perspective for a minute. Kyle Kuzma averaged 12 points a game this year. How much does Cam Reddish average right? I think his rookie year, like 10 or 11.
It had to be.
And people almost rioted and lost their minds because they're like, oh, he's not what I expected him to be, and blah, blah, blah. He still almost averaged the same thing that Kyle Kuzma did as a 19-year-old rookie.
He averaged 10.5.
And Kyle Kuzma is a whole third part to a big three, and he only averaging 2 more points than Cam Reddish, who's only 19 years old. Come on now, give me a break. Because I'm taking Cam Reddish all day. I'm taking DeAndre Hunter all day.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Like, it's definitely one of those, just one of those interesting comparisons. Like, it is, it's just, like I said, it's a lot. Like, it definitely is a lot. When you have that, when you have that thing on you, when you play in a big market, you automatically get a lot more attention, a lot more respect, a lot more love. And, even though players aren't necessarily the type that will go ahead and complain about this, like, you got lots of stuff that'll happen with other players, but they just don't necessarily get the attention that some of these dudes get just because they in big markets. But that is it. That's pretty much it for another episode of the ALeague. Like, we pretty much discussed a little bit of college football, a little bit of the stuff going on really in the bubble. So with that, as we always do, we might as well just get on up out of here, shall we?
Jeremy Johnson, Clark _ Kent _ 75. You know what it is.
RashadMilling.com. You can follow me on Twitter at GetWellKenny.
Definitely for sure. Like, absolutely get well. Akeem Balaam, Twitter, Gram, Beyond the W, Prep Girls Hoops, South Carolina. Check it out. Till next time, see ya later.
Y'all must thought that I was gone with spread the whole time.
I don't want friends, I want Audis. I don't want cars,